I need to have a word with you. Just a quick word. If you're new here, if you stumbled across this channel, this is the first time you found this channel, do the decent thing. Click subscribe. Click like. You can even leave a comment. But please subscribe to the channel. It's all free. I do this for you, out of love for the genre and for you. So please, click like, click subscribe, and stick around. Welcome back to my Water Stuff. My name is Paul Mount. Yeah, as I said, if you are new, it'd be nice for you to stick around. Subscriber numbers are grinding to a halt at the moment, so it'd be nice to get a few more on board as we head towards the festive season. Think of it as your gift to me. It's all I want. So yeah, like and subscribe and leave a comment. Just stick around because this is a fun channel full of old stuff, new stuff, unboxing, cinema trips and all that sort of caper. So there's plenty for you to enjoy. Go and look at the back catalogue. There's loads of stuff back there. Keep you entertained until kingdom come. So go on, like and subscribe and stick around. Today's film is something slightly different, although perhaps it isn't because I've done a few oldie retro British sci-fi films over the last couple of months. Today we're looking at a 1964 film called The Earth Dies Screaming. Not in any way connected with the UB40 1981 hit, which was a double A-side with Dream a Lie, incidentally. The Earth Dies Screaming. This is a film which sits quite nicely alongside those British sci-fi films of the early 60s, which were about strange alien invasions and mysterious things happening and possession and all those sort of post-war paranoia themes that infested a lot of science fiction, particularly in Britain. I have a huge fondness for these sorts of films. I love, as I've said again and again, I love those sorts of apocalyptic stories. I love stories where people are wandering through deserted streets and there are bodies lying everywhere and some terrible cataclysm has happened. And I've covered lots of those things on this channel. But The Earth Dies Screaming is a very unusual film. It's not one which is really given a lot of thought amongst this oeuvre of films. For some reason, possibly because it's quite short. This film came out in 1964. It's directed by Terence Fisher. Now, Terence Fisher at the time was very well known for his work on the early Hammer horror films. He cut his fangs on some of those early Dracula, Frankenstein, Mummy type films. And he was one of the regular go-to Hammer horror directors. I think that The Earth Dies Screaming is a film that he must have sort of dashed off in his lunch hour because it's a very short film, 62 minutes long. So if you're going to sit and watch this film, you can make yourself a cup of coffee and it's still going to be hot at the end of the film because it gets in and gets the job done. But it's actually a very nice little film, very understated. I'm not going to use the word underrated because somebody told me off about that. They don't like the word underrated. But this is an understated, very quiet, low-budget film, but actually it's very atmospheric in the way it tells its story. We start off with a montage of scenes. We open up with a train chuffing its way through the countryside and suddenly it crashes off the rails and explodes. Then we see planes dropping out of the sky. We see people, well, a person at a railway station collapsing, a car crashing, all these little images which set us up for what's going on, something strange is happening. It's slightly reminiscent of Village of the Damned, which was a sort of a slightly similar scenario a few years before, where everybody in a village collapsed and of course they woke up a bit later on and strange things were happening. But no such thing happens here. People have died. They've dropped dead. We then cut to a very small, typically picture postcard English village where an American Air Force pilot named Jeff Nolan, played by Willard Parker, he drives into town in his sports car. Something's very odd here. He can't find anybody alive. The bodies are here. There are vehicles crashed everywhere. But when he goes into the local pub, the White Horse, he is accosted by two people. Dennis Price, British character actor, plays Quinn Taggart, and Virginia Field, who was actually Willard Parker's wife at the time and in real life, she plays Peggy Hatton, who appears to be Quinn's partner. He aims a gun at him and they start discussing what's happened. There's something weird has happened and people have dropped dead and society seems to have ground to a halt. It's quite clear that some sort of invasion has taken place. When they try and listen to the radio, they can't pick anything up across any of the radio bands. They're soon joined by a couple more survivors. Again, a very well-known of the time character actor, Thorley Walters. He turns up playing Edgar, Ed Otis. He's a sort of a slightly drunk sort of businessman who is there with his secretary, Violet Cortland, played by Vanda Godsell. They've been at a party celebrating 25 years of their company, and apparently Violet snuck off somewhere before the end of the party and they were out of range of whatever it was. It's assumed that there's been some sort of gas attack that has incapacitated the country, possibly the world. We're then joined by two other people, Mel Brennard and his wife Lorna. They're played by David Spencer and Anna Palk. They're the sort of the young faces of the film. They turn up in a motor car. They turn up in a car. They're driven up from London. They're a young married couple, but they're struggling. She's pregnant, so they're heading home to see if they can get help from the family. But of course, everything's gone a bit pear-shaped. So this little group of survivors are in the village. Suddenly, they see two strange figures walking through the village. Strange silver robot creatures. Just two of them. Violet goes out to confront one of these things because she thinks it's the Air Force who come to put things right. And it turns around and gives her a zap and she collapses dead. Now, a point to make at this point about these creatures. These are interesting creations. There are only two costumes in the film. I think they had a couple of dummy costumes that were used in one or two scenes, but there are only two functioning creatures that you see at any time, and they're very effective. Actually, they're walking through the village square and around the houses, and they work because it's that combination of the mundane, the picture postcard English village, and the weird and unusual robot men. And it works very well. And there's some actually very creepy scenes with these creatures because when they turn to the camera, they're these blank mechanical visages with these strange eyes and mouths. They don't speak, but they appear in the background. There's one very good scene where I think Lorna is in the kitchen of the pub that they're hiding in, making some food. And one of these creatures is in the window looking in at her. And they're an interesting presence. What's particularly interesting about them, and this is purely my conjecture having viewed them, this film was made in 1964. 2 years later, the Cybermen appeared in Doctor Who, in The 10th Planet, William Hartnell's last story. And of course, the Cybermen were created by Kit Pedler, who was very scientifically minded and was keen to put a bit of proper science into Doctor Who. But if you look at these creatures and you look at the early Cybermen in Doctor Who, there is quite an incredible resemblance between the two. I'm not suggesting for a moment that Alexandra Tynan, who created the original Mondas Cybermen for Doctor Who, had seen this film or was ripping it off. I'm also not suggesting that Kit Pedler had seen this film and was ripping it off. And of course, none of these people are around now to say yay or nay. But there is an uncanny, or at least notable, resemblance between the robot men here and the Cybermen in Doctor Who. Probably a huge coincidence because this sort of robot cybernetics thing was just coming into vogue at this time. But there is an interesting resemblance. If you look at the robot with their blank faces and silver costumes, they've got these back power units, whereas the Cybermen in Doctor Who had the chest units. There is a resemblance, which I'm sure is coincidental, but I just wanted to mention it to show how smart I am for noticing it. Anyways, the film goes on. They're trapped in the village. They go to a nearby RAF station to collect some weapons. And then they discover, one way or another, it all happens very quickly, there's a relay station nearby, and they figure out that this is where the robots are getting their energy from. And if they can interfere with this relay station, they can disconnect the robots and attempt to restore some form of normality. Meanwhile, there's an additional threat, because the previously assumed to be dead people are coming back to life, zombie-like. They're coming back to life, their eyes are white, and they're just lumbering along, moving threateningly towards people. All this is going on, and across the space of this 1 hour film, our heroes destroy the transponder, they manage to destroy the receiver, the robots collapse, and in an ending which is quite ambiguous and quite nice, because what they've done, they haven't saved the world, they've just cut off the power source to the robots in this particular area. And our surviving heroes, I won't mention who dies and who lives and who dies amongst the crew, obviously, because it's never good fun to spoil a 60-year-old film, I find. So they head off on a plane, which they take from the nearby airfield. You just see the plane flying into the distance as the credits roll, with the characters on board just hoping to find other people who are still alive. So yeah, it's a short, sharp, punchy film. It doesn't mess about. It's interesting that it doesn't resolve the situation. That's quite good, because I think in the space of 62 minutes, I think it would have been a bit much to have an alien invasion that's completely repelled by the end of the film. But it is a nice little film. It's very atmospheric. It benefits particularly from a lot of location filming in a village called Share in Guildford, near Guildford, which is a lovely, I've never been there, it's a lovely little, again, picture postcard place. What's nice about it is it hasn't really changed very much. I don't know if you do. I do a lot when I see old, particularly British films, which have street names or recognisable locations and things. I can't help Google imaging to see what they look like now and how they've changed. I'm just fascinated by the idea of people having been standing around in these places that you see still exist. This is one which really hasn't changed a lot, particularly the White Horse, which is the pub that they stay in. I don't know if it's called the White Horse in the film, I can't remember. But the building looks pretty much the same. Obviously, the outside's been gentrified and modernised a little bit. But if you look at pictures from the film, when it was made in 64 and now, it's very clearly the same building. And you get certain shots around the village square and things that hasn't changed because it's a small English village. Places like that don't tend to change a lot. They don't have massive new housing estates built. They don't have high-rise buildings. They're little country villages for a reason. And the film makes good use of these locations because they're out and about quite a lot. And it brings the story down to earth and makes it more compelling, and it gets you into the story more because it is, as I said, it's that mix of the alien and what we recognise, which always works well, which is why I always prefer sort of earthbound science fiction stories rather than things set on the planet Zarg, because I don't care about the planet Zarg, but I live on Earth and it's interesting to see weird things happening and how people deal with them. And this is a nice example of that type of film that was made in this particular era. As I said, clearly very low budget, but it works very well with its resources to bring an interesting and quite spooky story to the screen in 62 minutes. So I highly recommend The Earth Dies Screaming. The song by UB40 is very good, but this film is very good too. And if you want to see it, it is available on Blu-ray from, I think it's the BFI, but it's also freely available, a very good quality copy, several copies in fact, on YouTube. So if you want to watch it after you watch this video, once you've liked and subscribed, of course, you just nip over to YouTube and watch the whole thing, over and done in an hour. It's not a film that people really talk about very much because it is what it is. It's barely episode length. I mean, if you think of a lot of episodes of things we watch on Amazon and Netflix, a lot longer than this, but this is a film that's done and dusted in an hour, and that's probably one of the reasons it's sort of fallen down the sofa a little bit, because it's done and dusted in minutes. So anyway, I enjoy it. It's a good film, and I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for The Earth Dies Screaming. Right, thank you for watching once again. A little reminder for you to like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been of interest to you. If you know of The Earth Dies Screaming, leave a comment down below. A lot of people do, so it's always nice to hear from people who've seen these films and remember them and what their thoughts are. If you're going to rush and watch it now, leave a comment, tell me what you thought of it. Just keep in touch, eh? Don't be a stranger. Right, I'll see you soon. Until I do, keep checking the stuff.